Sainam students, welcome back to the session. Today we are going to learn a new lesson in social studies. Look at the picture. This is a picture of the sea. You all must have seen the sea and you must have played in the water. So students, what do we call the areas near the sea? The areas near the sea are called coast, and the plains in the coast are called coastal plains. So students, today we are going to learn lesson number 7, the coastal plains and islands. In this lesson, you will learn about the western and eastern coastal plains, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and the Lakshadweep Islands. So students, let's start. As you have seen in the previous chapters, the southern plateau covers most of the Indian peninsula. The plateau is surrounded by narrow coastal plains on the eastern and western sides. Now we'll see where the eastern and coastal plains are located. On the west, between the Western Ghats and the Arabian Sea, is the western coastal plain. On the east, between the Eastern Ghats and the Bay of Bengal, is the eastern coastal plains. So students, on the west, between the Western Ghats and the Arabian Sea, is the western coastal plain. On the east, between the Eastern Ghats and the Bay of Bengal, is the eastern coastal plain. These plains meet at Kanyakumari, known earlier as Kanyakumari. These plains meet at Kanyakumari, the southernmost tip of the peninsula. There are also many islands in the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea, like Andaman and Nicobar Islands and the Lakshadweep Islands. This is the map. You can see the Kanyakumari. See here. Here, this is the southernmost tip. India has an extremely long coastline. It has a long coastline. This is a great advantage for India, as it can use ships to transport large quantities of goods into and out of the country. This is a great advantage. Ships are loaded and unloaded at ports. So students, what is a port? Yes, a port is a place by the sea or a river where ships can be loaded and unloaded. There are number of ports. See, this is the image of a ship being loaded. There are number of ports along the coast in India. Some of these are Mumbai, Kandla, Kochi and Panaji on the western coast. All these are on the western coast. Mumbai, Kandla, Kochi and Panaji on the western coast. Kolkata, Puducherry and Chennai on the eastern coast. This is the Mumbai port. Kandla, Kochi and Panaji. On which coast? On the western coast. Kolkata, Puducherry and Chennai on which coast? On the eastern coast. The long coastline also encourages fishing. The long coastline also encourages fishing. So, fishing is an important occupation of the people living in coastal areas. Now we'll learn about the Western Coastal Plain. Between the Western Ghats and the Arabian Sea is the Western Coastal Plain. It begins from Gujarat. From where it begins? It begins from Gujarat in the north and passes through Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka and Kerala. So look at the map. The Western Coastal Plains begins from Gujarat and passes through Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka and Kerala. It is divided into three main parts. How many parts? Yes, three main parts. The Gujarat coast in the north, the Konkan coast in the middle up to Goa, the Malabar coast in the south, that is from Goa to Kanyakumari. So students, did you understand? It is divided into three parts. The Gujarat coast in the north, the Konkan coast in the middle up to Goa, the Malabar coast in the south, that is from Goa to Kanyakumari. See here, look at the map. This is Gujarat coast, Konkan coast and Malabar coast. Next, we are going to learn about the Eastern Coastal Plain. Between the Eastern Ghats and the Bay of Bengal is the Eastern Coastal Plain. It begins from West Bengal in the north. From where it begins? It begins from West Bengal in the north and passes through Odisha, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. So the Eastern Coastal Plain begins from West Bengal in the north and passes through Odisha, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. The eastern coastal plains are wider than the western coastal plains. The northern part of the eastern coastal plains is called the Northern Circus. That is, it is called the northern part of the eastern coastal plain is called the Northern Circus, and the southern part is called the Coromandel Coast. Look at the map. The eastern coastal plain begins from West Bengal and passes through Orissa, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. The eastern coastal plains are wider. These are the eastern coastal plains. They are wider than the western coastal plains. The northern part of the eastern coastal plains is called the Northern Circus, and the southern part is called the Coromandel Coast. So did you understand, students? Next we are going to learn about the islands. The islands in the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal near the Indian mainland are a part of India. The islands, what are they? Arabian Sea. The islands in the where in the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal, which are near the Indian mainland, are a part of India. There are two groups of islands: the Andaman and Nicobar Islands in the Bay of Bengal and the Lakshadweep Islands in the Arabian Sea. There are two groups: the Andaman and Nicobar Island in Bay of Bengal, Lakshadweep Islands in the Arabian Sea. This is the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and this is the Lakshadweep Island. Andaman and Nicobar Island. These are two groups of about 300 islands. These are two groups of about 300 islands where in the Bay of Bengal. The northern islands are known as Andaman Islands and the southern islands are known as Nicobar Islands. They also form a union territory of India. The southernmost part of the islands is called Indira Point. Yes, the southernmost part of the islands is called the Indira Point, and it is also the southernmost part of India. See, this is the map of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. This is the Indira Point here. Indira Point. Next, we are going to learn about Lakshadweep Islands. These are Lakshadweep Islands. These are a group of about 30 islands. How many? 30 islands, only some of which are inhabited. What is inhabited? Inhabited means someone or something who lives in the place. So only some of which are inhabited, and they are close to which coast? Malabar coast. They are close to Malabar coast. They also form a union territory. Many of these islands are made of deposits of the skeletons of an animal and are called coral. Such islands are called coral islands. This is the map of Lakshadweep. This is coral. So students, did you understand what we learned today? So let's summarize what we learned today. Today we learned about the western and eastern coastal plains. On the west, between the Western Ghats and the Arabian Sea, is the western coastal plain. On the east, between the Eastern Ghats and the Bay of Bengal, is the eastern coastal plain. The western coastal plain begins from Gujarat in the north and passes through Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka and Kerala. It is divided into how many parts? 3 main parts. Yes, the Gujarat coast in the north, the Konkan coast in the middle and up to Goa. The Malabar coast in the south from Goa to Kanyakumari. Next is the islands. There are two groups of islands, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands in the Bay of Bengal and the Lakshadweep Islands in the Arabian Sea. So students, with this I'll stop. The remaining part will continue in the next class. Until then, goodbye. Stay home, stay safe.